Ladies and gents, almost as you reaction, and this is the clusterfuck that is known as Europe, the First Crusade. A good crusade? Extra History Part 3. So yeah, Peter the Hermit and all the civilian basically fucked up in the last parts. And now I guess the real army is going to join in, I guess. So proper crusade starts now. Yeah, we'll see. Because so far the thing has been ridiculous, right? It's just chaotic. Not surprising though. I mean, knowing people in general, right? Common people taking arms to take our holy land, disorganized, right? Doing heinous shit. It's not that far-fetched to think about. There's a reason why real armies has to be disciplined. So yeah, let's watch this one. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more, I guess. Check out the reaction, there's a link in the description with all of my videos. Check out the cast of playlists like History, Holy Sarcastic Production, or Simplified, CGP Grey, and yeah, let's watch it.
Last we left off, the disastrous People's Crusade had met its end at the hand of the Seljuk Turks, and Peter, along with the few thousand remaining of those who joined him, were hiding out in Constantinople awaiting the arrival of the real Crusaders. Today, finally, that real crusade will begin. But before the First Crusade can begin in earnest, the Crusaders have to get to the Holy Land. And to do that, we have to recognize one very important point about the First Crusade that's often overlooked. The army of the First Crusade isn't actually one army at all. Rather, it's at least 5 separate armies led by 5 different men from 5 different parts of Europe.
Makes
Each
sense.
of them set out from 5 different starting points with the idea that they'd all meet up in Constantinople and move on to the Holy Land from there. The first army is that of Hugh of Vermandois. This was the smallest army, although arguably the noblest of the noble armies, as Hugh was the brother of the King of France, which was a bit awkward as the Pope had recently excommunicated King Philip I of France for adultery, but hey, why let fraternal excommunication get in the way of a good crusade? Now, from Western Europe, there are basically 2 ways to
Maybe that is why he's doing it, to, I guess, clear his name, right? In people's eyes at least, like he's doing God's work now.
To Constantinople, travel over land through Hungary, or head to Italy and travel by sea. Hugh chose the latter of these 2 options. Unfortunately, his tiny fleet was hit by a storm, and he lost a good number of his ships. But eventually, the Byzantines fished the remaining Crusaders out of the Adriatic and escorted them to Constantinople, where Hugh promptly sent a message to the emperor that read, "Know, O king, that I am king of kings, and superior to all who are under the sky. You are now permitted to greet me on my arrival, and to receive me with magnificence, as befits my nobility." Needless to say, the emperor was not impressed. The second army on our list
He's like, kindly fuck you.
was that of Godfrey de Bouillon. He represented the German contingent of the Crusades and brought a sizable force from the Holy Roman Empire, which is only a little bit awkward as he had actually fought against the Pope when the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor were duking it out, and in fact, he directly helped kick the Pope out of Rome, but hey, why let a few armed legions supporting the anti-Pope to kick the legitimate Pope out of Rome get in the way of a good crusade? He and his brother, Baldwin, leaving from only about 200 miles south of where Peter's crusade set out, decided to take the same route that Peter did. But
Yeah, you need to understand that this is more like a PR thing, let's just say, right? It's a crusade for, I guess, a god, for the, Christians or whatever, right? To kick Muslims out of Jerusalem. This is a PR thing. That's why everybody's jumping on, even if people, has opposed Pope and don't like the Pope, that doesn't matter. Right, people are doing this to, get good PR in the eyes of the Christian folk, right? I guess, common people, right? Look at that, we fought the holy wars, right, for the God and, for our country, things like that. So it doesn't matter if they fought with the Pope or not.
this time, when the King of Hungary saw a group of Crusaders pulling up on his doorstep, he was like, no, 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 no. But after a lot of talking, the King of Hungary finally allowed Godfrey to pass through on the condition that Godfrey's brother Baldwin and his entire family
I'm imagining this army basically marching from the distance and that basically King of Hungary just, going on the edge of his wall and is like, oh, hell no, 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 go back. Get the fuck out of here. I mean, this is just fucked up times, man. In Hungary, basically, people are thinking we are Christians. Christians are coming for the crusade. They are going to take over Jerusalem. That's their mentality. But at the same time, those are the same people that came and basically killed the Hungarian people, pillaged places and things like that. So what are they supposed to think? Like, these are allies? But how? They've done more to hurt us than, the Muslims did in Jerusalem, I guess, by now. Because they've killed and, pillaged our places. So these Christian crusaders are coming. Are they enemy or what? What the fuck is happening? So the king is basically like, oh hell no, I'm not having this again.
Family stay as hostages. After making it through Hungary without a single looting, Godfrey planned to resupply at Belgrade, but wait, nope, Peter had burnt that to the ground. Oops. Now, our poor beleaguered Byzantine governor must have been preparing himself for yet another round of terrible conflict with the Crusaders, but Godfrey's army, like a champ, managed to make it through to Constantinople with only a tiny, itty-bitty bit of pillaging. Next, we have the army of Bohemond, Prince of Taranto. The force he brought was smaller than most of the others, but it was by far the best armed and the most experienced, which is a little bit awkward because most of these troops got their experience trying to conquer the Byzantine Empire 12 years before. But why let unprovoked acts of naked aggression and the near unseating of the very ruler you're now supposed to go help get in the way of a good crusade? So, after sailing across the Adriatic and a ponderously slow march across the Balkans, where their men occasionally wholesale looted the very same people they looted a decade and a half ago in the war, Bohemond and his nephew Tancred finally made it to Constantinople. After Bohemond, we have the army of Raymond, the Count of Toulouse. Raymond led the largest army and what can be considered the principal crusading force.
How does that work, right? Byzantine Empire's town, you're gonna raid and go to Constantinople and think like, oh, okay, we arrived, holy crusaders here, I guess. You're the Christian nation, we are the Christian nation, we arrived here or something like that. How does that work? You just fucking pillage my people. I'm supposed to welcome you with open arms?
As such, Raymond considered himself to be leader of the crusade, which is only a little awkward as he traveled alongside Bishop Adhemar, the papal legate assigned by the Pope as the leader of the crusade. But Raymond was also old, missing one eye, and stated that he hoped to die in the Holy Land, so why let a little leadership dispute get in the way of a good crusade? Raymond and his forces chose to follow the overland route to Constantinople. Unfortunately, when they got to the Balkans, they ended up passing through a lot of the same territory that Bohemond did, which meant that the people there were hostile, and the land was already stripped bare. This left Raymond's gigantic force hungry and grumpy, and by this point, we all know what hungry, grumpy crusaders do. During the pillaging, Bishop Adhemar was wounded and had to stay behind for a bit to recover. What's more, Raymond was called off to Constantinople to meet with the emperor personally, leaving no one really in charge of the largest crusading army. This huge unsupervised army then managed to get itself in a tussle with Byzantine forces, and, as is the pattern, got itself routed. But eventually, Raymond's remaining men limped their way to Constantinople. Lastly, we have the army of Robert of Flanders, who surprisingly had nothing awkward going on at all, as his father had gone on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem a few years back, and had fought for Alexius Comnenus on the way, leaving the family on good terms with the Byzantines. Like Bohemond and Hugh, Robert also decided to try his hand at the sea route, and surprisingly, he managed to make the crossing to Byzantine territory without losses. Even more surprisingly, he managed to make it all the way to Constantinople without any major reports of
So Robert of Flanders is the only competent guy in this crusade, apparently.
pillaging or looting. But there were two other fellows leading this crusading army along with Robert. One Robert of Normandy, just to make things confusing, and a Stephen of Blois, both of whom were relations of William the Conqueror. They decided that the crossing was too risky and that they were going to wait until spring to cross. That would generally be a wise decision, though in this case they would end up losing one of their ships where Robert had lost none. And while they waited in Italy, a fair number of crusaders decided that a winter in Italy isn't what they signed up for, and deserted. Alright, I think that's everybody. Now that all the crusaders are in Constantinople, the real party starts. At least for the leaders of the crusade it does. You see, Alexius Comnenus, being a savvy guy, basically trusted none of these people. So he decided that before he'd ferry them across the Bosphorus, he'd get all the leaders to swear that as they crusaded, they would return any previously Byzantine territory they conquered to the Byzantine Empire. That's the entire reason Alexius got this ball rolling in the first place, after all. As you can imagine, this didn't sit well with some of the crusading leaders.
Yeah, I mean, you're just hosting me, giving me party, and I'm supposed to give you fucking land. And land is a real currency. Why would we, take all lands and just give it to you? Right? That would be the case there. And obviously he was suspicious because you can't have all these leaders from different countries just come here. I mean, they could backstab you, right? You have to be on your guard.
So Alexius decided to talk to them privately, one by one. It turned out that Hugh, in this as in most things, was a bit of a pushover. Godfrey, on the other hand, turned out to be absolutely bonkers. He just straight up refused to go to the imperial palace to meet with Alexius at all. So far as I can tell, he didn't really give any reason for this either. He had come all the way to Constantinople, and now he just sat outside doing nothing. Emperor Alexius finally decided, okay, I'll send Hugh to talk to him, I guess. But when Hugh showed up, Godfrey called him a lackey and refused to deal with anyone less than the Emperor. Okay. This weird standoff continued until, finally, after Alexius...
Oh, wait a minute. Is that a dick measuring contest? I guess he wanted the Emperor to come to him rather than he wants to go there, because he didn't want to meet the basically Byzantine Emperor, right? But he also told that guy that Emperor has to come here. No, I'm not going to talk to you. So he wanted the basically Byzantine Empire to come to him, basically, just to show off like how important I am. You're in his land, man. It doesn't make you any shorter if you go to him, right, to talk. You're in his land.
Cut off the supplies he'd been sending him, Godfrey's troops attacked Imperial troops. There was a minor skirmish, Godfrey's troops lost, and so far as I can discern, Godfrey just instantly caved. The Emperor gave...
Alright, one thing I'm noticing, Byzantine soldiers are better than the other soldiers because they're constantly kicking ass of everybody else, right? When it was civilians, it was understandable, but now these are soldiers. And Byzantine soldiers are still kicking their ass. So why can't they take their land by themselves? Why do they need a crusade?
Godfrey a small mound of treasure and basically just said, "Get out of here," and booted his forces over the Bosphorus. Okay, that's 2 down. Now it was Bohemond's turn, and he was a wily one. Now, whatever else you may say about Bohemond, he was charming, intelligent, diplomatic, and shrewd. Alexius knew that Bohemond probably wasn't there just out of crusading zeal, as this was the same Bohemond who had tried to dethrone him a few years ago. Alexius was bracing himself for an argument to get Bohemond to agree to give back whatever conquests he might gain on the crusade. But Bohemond was 1 step ahead. He agreed right away. Of course he would take the oath. But since he was being so forthcoming, wouldn't it make sense for the Emperor to name him as the leader of the crusade? What? Alexius stumbled for a moment here, but he too was a savvy and shrewd man, and so rapidly regained his bearing, said something non-committal like, yeah, I probably could, hang on. And then quickly shuffled Bohemond off to a room literally overflowing with gold and jewels and silver, and basically said, "What? Look at all this annoying treasure just clogging up my otherwise lovely room. Wow, that's a nuisance. If only I had a buddy here who could cart it all off for me after saying one measly little oath." And measly little oaths were indeed said. But this whole time, Bohemond's nephew Tancred was outside with the army, miles from the city, and so managed to just sort of never take the oath himself. This may end up being relevant to future Extra History episodes. Raymond was next. He met with the Emperor, but...
Okay, why is that going to be relevant? Is this some kind of a loophole? Damn.
Flat out refused to take the oath. He went on a whole spiel saying, "God is my only leader," and that he would not swear to such a thing. Eventually, Alexius managed to get him to at least swear to an oath of brohood, a broth, if you will, proclaiming that Alexius was his bro forever and that he would help him wherever he could, especially against that weasel Bohemond. Alexius eventually said, "All right, good enough," and sent him on his way. No presents for you, though. Presents are for people who swear actual oaths. Lastly, of course, there was Robert. Their conversation boiled down to, "Are we cool?" "Yeah, we're cool." Then Alexius showered him with...
Wait a minute, is that Robert of Flanders? Damn, I'm really confusing the names here, right? He's that. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, it is Robert of Flanders.
Lastly, of course, there was Robert. Their conversation boiled down to, "Are we cool?" "Yeah, we're cool." Then Alexius showered him with gifts and said, "Go get him, tiger." And thus began the first...
Yeah, man, I love that. Robert of Flanders. Of all the people, he's the one who's actually competent, right? Even this Byzantine emperor basically realizes, like, okay, there's no need to, I guess, convince him he's smart enough guy. So basically, they just understood each other. He just gave him the money and, understood, like, okay, I guess I'm going to give you back your land, sure, whatever.
Crusade. Seriously this time, the First Crusade is actually beginning now. Next week, we'll see them march off into Turkish territory, fight battles against people who aren't supposed to be their allies, and actually retake land for Christendom. See you then.
Wait a minute, they are going to succeed? I don't think they're going to succeed, right? If they can succeed, what's with the other crusades? Since there are so many crusades, I'm guessing that there's so many seasons, let's just say. So I'm guessing this is not the series finale. So they don't take Jerusalem, right? Or maybe they do take Jerusalem, then, Turkey basically takes it back and another crusade begins or something. I don't know. So yeah, now the proper crusade begins. So far, it was a clusterfuck with the civilians, right? This was a bit more professional, but still, it was still a clusterfuck here and there. But it was mostly professional, I guess. Especially the guy from the Flanders, Robert, whatever. Flanders is, I guess, is that area, right? And north of France. That's the Flanders, right? I remember that from the World War One video. So yeah, now a proper crusade begins. But I still feel like, there's going to be lots of fuck-ups because different country, different men are leading their charges. There is no one guy who supposedly leads the people. And even if there is, I guess people can just basically ignore him because it's from different Christian countries. So when it's about to actually fight on the field, it's going to be an issue if there is no one stable leader who everybody, I guess, I don't know, believe in or whatever. So yeah. Alright people, that was Europe, the First Crusade. A good crusade? Question mark. My channel, Extra Credits. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. So, I know which type of videos to react to more. 75% of people who watches my videos are not subscribed. So, just click the subscribe button, right? So, I know, most of my base is history video people or, other one. Yeah, this way I can, react to more history videos or I guess based on that. And yeah, I'll see you next time.